this is something that should have been done earlier. If you recollect, the North Minister, Gadkari ji, had also proposed something similar around JNPT and other ports, but somehow it did not lead to execution. So I think, I mean, as my previous panelists also mentioned, it is a no-brainer that we need to have these cities because there is already some density. There is a logistics hub that's happening, which is the shipping itself. And around every logistics hub, it is natural that a city grows up. If a city hasn't grown up, it's because of lacunae in policies. And in fact, if I look at the 5,000 crore VGF that's been given, I think we don't even need the VGF to do the development. As long as we clear up the policy hurdles, we allow land acquisition to happen, we allow development to happen without any hindrance, it'll be an economically driven initiative. And needless to say, every aspect that you mentioned, such as Make in India, will get a huge fillip because each city takes about $30 billion to develop. And that's $30 billion of materials and services that will get consumed to build the city. If you've got 10 such cities coming up, that's $300 billion coming up, which is 10% of our current GDP. And that's humongous amount of investments that will go in. Once these investments go in, the logistics sector also develops very significantly, and therefore, from port, the evacuation from port to the hinterland and back becomes much easier because there is a city to support that entire movement. And therefore, from the point of development, from the point of the economic growth, from the amount of investments that will come in, from the point of Make in India, building these cities around the ports is something that we should have done long time back. It's great that we are at least initiating it now. It will not be free of challenges. So I don't think it will happen overnight because, land acquisition itself is a big issue. If we see what happened with Andhra Pradesh capital city project at Amravati, it has got delayed by 10 years now. And at some point in time, it went through the politicking of, that not being the city and multiple other entities becoming a city and Andhra Pradesh having 3 capital cities instead of 1 capital city, which then endangers the investment that goes in. So as long as we've got very solid policy in place and there's no fickleness in policy, there will be huge amount of private capital that will be coming in and there will be significant amount of growth as long as we clean up all the policy and regulatory issues around setting up these cities. Clearly, we need to, have the vessels being built in India. And at some point in time, we were one of the largest builders of vessels to the extent that the British ship industry was so threatened that they had to pass 2 laws, one in 1813 and one in 1814, curtailing the Indian industry and breaking it down and completely shutting it down because they wanted to support what was then, one could have called as Atmanirbhar Britain. Because the shipbuilders went to the king of Britain and said that, look, we are not able to compete with the Indian ships because they're better, bigger, cheaper, and easier to operate. So we will die. But when your Royal Navy needs us, you won't find us. And therefore, for the purpose of Atmanirbhar Britain, you really need to destroy the Indian shipping industry. And that's really what happened. So after 1813, 50% of business of Surat and Bengal went down. And by 1814, nothing much was left of the shipping industry in India. And therefore, we need to rebuild all of that. Right now, we have less than 1% of the global market share of shipbuilding. And specifically, if you're talking about river ships and coastal shipping, which are not very really big vessels in that sense, those are something where we should be 100% Atmanirbhar and with the current capabilities that we have. Also, given the capability that we have in terms of building the naval warships, which are of humongous size, including the first aircraft carrier that we had built, it should not be a problem for us to build, the regular larger container ships. But also, please do keep in mind that the total port capacity of India is less than 20 million, TEUs, which is 20 million 20 feet containers that we have. Whereas if you look at China, they've got roughly about 80 million units. So if the total demand itself is lower in terms of shipping, then there is a problem in terms of access to market that we have. So what we need to do is build in tandem the ship building capability as well as the demand. And thankfully, because of the new ports coming up, including the Vizhinjam port, the total requirement of ships will also be going up. there should be policies which ensures that there is a easier access to this domestic market that our domestic shipbuilders get. It should not be that we have shipping lines coming up and they buy foreign ships. I think there are policies that needs to be built in tandem to all the initiatives that we are putting together. Having said that, I think one of the other really excellent points that we see in this policy is the fact that the push is on green ships. So ships that are being propelled by green energy, such as green hydrogen, electric, and so on and so forth. So here is a huge, gap that is going to come up as we shift from the current really polluting ships that we have. There will be a demand for having green ships, and not too many countries in the world are really focusing on that requirement. Now, if you look at China, they saw the opportunity of getting into green cars, into electric cars, very very early on. So they passed regulations, subsidies, and so on and so forth by 2007, 2008, which has now made the Chinese EVs a dominant force. Similarly, now that we have woken up to the need for green ships, if you're able to execute this properly, then India will be a dominant player as the world shifts from the current polluting ships to the green ships. So these are important, very visionary steps that are being taken. Again, the qualifier being that it has to be executed properly.